I'm Emily Turner. Today I am joined by Dr. Roseann Copanna-Hodge, who is a child psychologist as well as an expert in children's mental health. I feel like today, after everything that's happened in this past weekend, that is so much, so necessary to talk to your children about this.
Absolutely. This is an unfortunate part of our society today, and it's an ongoing conversation that we need to have. We need to talk to children about not only how to protect themselves, how to look for signs of other children in distress, and what they should do. What's happening today is pretty much every school in America has drills. Safety drills, not just fire drills, safety drills, and they need to understand that before they experience that. And what parents really need to do is have, depending on their child's age, have developmentally appropriate conversation about safety, about shootings, about what could happen to them, what is happening. It really varies depending on if this is something that's actually happened in your community. As somebody who was a provider working in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, we have an office in Ridgefield, Connecticut, and Newtown, Connecticut. We worked with dozens of children and family afflicted, and there was no way to prepare for that. And after that tragedy, that sort of has become a pivot in our world about how to work and how to support kids in the days after any incident. Some children show signs right away, and what's more typical is children show signs in the weeks or months to come, and parents are very distressed, and there's an interaction with that. So we need to care for our kids, but we also need to care for ourselves as parents and have accurate information. And kids a lot of times hear things and they have questions. They don't know how to ask questions. Parents don't know how to talk to their kids, and that's what I try to do. I do have a resource on my website, a free resource for parents about how to talk to your kids on about these types of issues, and it's at www.drroseann.com, and it's free.
Right. I mean, I went to lunch with a friend of mine who's a mom of a 2-year-old, and she's like, I don't even know where to begin with my daughter and what to tell her in the future because of what's happening right now. I mean, where do you even start?
You know, my experience has been that kids have some information. So what I like to do is say, do you have any questions about this? And some kids don't have that ability to really ask you questions. You can tell when a kid is uncomfortable by their body language. And so again, that developmentally appropriate conversation with a 2 or 3-year-old, you're not going to have the same conversation that you're even going to have with a 5-year-old. So, always assure that they're safe, because really, even though we are going into a world where this is happening more frequently, we are generally safe. So kids need that. They need that reinsurance. It's not fair to them not to give it to them, but it's also appropriate to give them education about what to do in situations when they are uncomfortable.
So how does the age of the child kind of matter with what you're saying or how much you talk about it? Do you have a couple of just pointers for, say, younger kids, middle kids up to teenagers even?
Yeah, absolutely. So some good pointers are always start with asking what they know and asking if they have a question. Because again, a lot of misinformation. I know that after the tragedy, when I was working with kids of varying ages, they had heard things from other kids. And that's really important, that if you're in a community where the tragedy has happened, that often kids who are not initially traumatized can be traumatized later by misinformation or accurate information. Everyone experiences it. So some pointers for younger kids is keep it real simple, do a lot of loving, a lot of reassurance. School age kids, they can handle more details, more information, always assure safety. And really when you get to middle and high school, what's really significant is letting them know about what mental health issues look like in general, and making sure that they understand that who they should go to if they have concerns about anybody or themselves. And really ask them, have deep conversations, and particularly with middle school and high school kids, those conversations only come through spending time. You don't want to do a grilling of your teenager. They're going to close the door on you. We all know this. I'm a mom of a teenager. So you really want to spend time with them and really try to reassure them. Sometimes it's great if you're close with a good friend of your kid and open up that conversation and maybe get together with another family. But lots of just general conversation, supportive, checking in, and really look for signs if your kid is distressed. Are they having sleep difficulties? Are they having stomach aches and headaches? These are the signs that children show when they're stressed. They don't experience stress typically in the same way. They're not going to say, hey, mom, I'm really stressed out. They're going to be like, I have a headache. So look for those signs, look for more emotionality, pushback. And that's really when it's important to dialogue. And if you feel like your kid is stuck, seek a licensed mental health professional. We have wonderful professionals all over America, and they sometimes can just help parents, which is what we do in our center in Ridgefield, to just have the right words to help communicate and really restore that security for a child or a teenager.
I think it's easy sometimes to underestimate the scope of your child's knowledge, how much do they actually know, how much have they been exposed to. But with social media at this point, it's like inevitable that they'll find out about something as much as you want to protect them. So is it probably more common than you might think that kids would be affected by news that maybe isn't even in their town or close to them, but say kids in California being really upset by what's happened in El Paso?
100%. You could not be more accurate in that statement. So kids are exposed to a lot, and I think that's why having the general conversation is really important. And, sometimes kids are waiting for parents to bring things up. Kids are exposed. I know that after the Sandy Hook tragedy 6 years ago, we were getting calls at our center from people all over the United States. And even in our community, it could be 3 communities out and people were feeling guilty that they were literally not able to sleep for months. No, tragedy affects us all. You're more likely to experience trauma if you've had a prior trauma, either as a child or as a parent, or if you already have an imbalance in your system, a neurological issue, ADD, anxiety already, you're more likely to feel it more. So even just small exposures, and when we get distressed, and who isn't going to get distressed about these shootings? This is awful. This is commonplace. This is unacceptable. And what's happening is parents are talking about it and they're not realizing how much their children are absorbing. And you're right. I mean, teenagers are constantly getting exposed through social media, and there's no way to stop that.
At what point are you having actual discourse, and it can be a learning point, a jumping off point for maybe exploring ideas of morality or legislation and that kind of thing? At what point, though, do you push that too far to where it could almost be damaging, or you're exposing your kid more than perhaps you should?
That's a wonderful question. Being so connected to the Sandy Hook community, and so many positive things happen in that community, so much activism, so much love. And you have to look to your child. If your child wants to be an activist, support them in that, right? But to make your kid do something that they're not comfortable with is never a good idea. So look to them, guide them, support them, cheer them on, but also make sure that you're dialoguing and checking in with them and giving them a lot of TLC.
And what about, this is a conversation I've had with some of the moms here, is do they need to sit down and preemptively have a conversation with their kids to say, if this happens here, here's what you do? Or are you almost freaking them out unnecessarily? Because if you look at the numbers, statistically, you are more likely to be safe.
I think that what the best way to handle this is, again, no matter what, they're doing safety drills.
Right.
This is in your child's consciousness, whether we want to accept it or not. And I saw a lot of kids after Sandy Hook whose parents refused to tell them anything about it. And it was a mistake because they got exposed. There was no way in any of the communities near where we were, or forget about it, anywhere in the U.S., that you weren't going to be exposed. So I think what you do is you sit them down and say, hey, we're having these safety drills. We believe your school is safe. Here are some of the concerns that, are going on. Again, we're safe. Here's what you do. You make sure you listen to your teachers when you're in a drill. If something does happen, here's where it is. And then you watch and you listen to your child's response to that. Because if they're already very distressed, you may need to give them more support. And we don't know, one person experiences stress in one way and another kid. I can tell you that, the privilege of working with those children and families after Sandy Hook, the resilience of them is unbelievable. But yet some people struggled. And most of those people struggled because they already had an organic issue with anxiety, or even we had kids on the spectrum, that autistic spectrum. And so it's important. You don't want to put fear in them, but you want to give them education and comfort and the empowerment to know what they need to do in these situations.
All right. So the big takeaway here is to reassure them, let them lead the conversation, and then if parents have questions or they want more information, what is your resource that you offer them so they can go and ask questions or find information?
Yeah, so on our website, www.roseann.com, there's a free parent resource guide about questions to ask, but, yes, lead questions, but be there to listen and always, give your kids as much time as you possibly can in this busy world.
Yeah, definitely a reminder to always give them a hug. Thanks so much, Dr. Roseann.
Lots of hugs. Be well. Thank you, everybody.